Chapter 11. The National Movement, First Phase. You studied how the anger and disappointment among the native people got burst in 1857 and resulted in a massive revolt. Though the revolt was suppressed by the British, yet they became more careful and alert. The British government realized that the company could not control such a huge country properly, so it decided to take over the control of India in its hands. The British government assured Indians that they would get a better governance to pacify their anger. But the revolt of 1857 had already sown the seeds of nationalism in the hearts of Indian masses. The second half of the 19th century led to a political awakening among the people. There was a growth of national consciousness and consequently a new kind of movement took shape, growth of nationalism. The strengthening of a common national identity gave rise to an organized national movement in India. It was national in character, as it represented the aspirations of the Indian people as a whole. People started looking beyond their regional boundaries and thought of India as a single nation, and themselves as a part of this nation. With this growing sense of unity came the feeling of nationalism. Factors behind the growth of nationalism. Let us read about the factors that contributed to the rise of nationalism in India. Discontent against British rule. Since most of the British policies were against the country and the people, there was disappointment in almost all sections of Indian society. The peasants had to pay high taxes. The artisan was ruined by foreign competition. The factory workers received very low wages. The British made no attempt to encourage agriculture and industry. Employment opportunities for the educated Indians were limited. The attitude of superiority adopted by the British considered themselves a superior race and the Indians as belonging to an inferior one. All these factors resulted in growing opposition to British rule. Political, administrative and economic unification of the country. India was first time unified by the British in real sense. The British introduced a uniform system of governance throughout the country. Laws, at least in theory, were uniformly applied to all. Economic life in India became interlinked after the introduction of modern industries. People from all parts of the country worked in these industries. By working and traveling together, caste, community and regional feelings began to weaken. A feeling of solidarity and togetherness developed. The railways, telegraph and postal system helped people to come in contact with one another. Spread of modern education. The spread of modern education also helped in the rise of nationalistic feelings. The British had introduced modern Western education to prepare some Indians to work at low posts in the administration. The British also believed that if Indians were exposed to Western thoughts and ideas, they would become supporters of British rule in India. The British expected that since educated Indians would be dependent on them for employment, they would always remain loyal to them. However, their expectation proved to be wrong. Exposures to Western ideas made people more conscious of their rights. They were impressed by the ideas of freedom and equality, popularized by the American and French revolutions. They began to criticize the government for suppressing these ideas in India and denying basic human rights to Indians. Role of the press. The Indian press played an extremely important role in strengthening national consciousness. The newspapers of the period highlighted the anti-Indian policies of the British government and asked the people to unite and work for a common cause. Both the English and the vernacular press became a medium to mobilize public opinion and create a feeling of national bonding. The government tried to suppress the growing feeling of nationalism and patriotism by banning newspapers and books. These attempts, however, failed. Immediate factors. The increasing atrocities of the British had made the people of our country to think for their national identity. The policies of the Viceroy, Lord Lytton, intensified discontent against British rule. Ilbert Bill controversy. Ilbert Bill introduced by Sir Ilbert, a law member during the reign of Lord Ripon, created uproar in 1833. It had a provision which gave Indian judges the power to try cases involving Europeans. Immediately, the whole European community started an agitation opposing the bill. These protests forced the government to withdraw the bill. To the Indians, it was a proof that they could never expect equality from the British government. Birth of political associations. Many educated people began to form political associations in India after 1850s, so as to bring the people together and to put pressure on the British. One of the first such associations was the British India Association, formed by Surendranath Banerjee in 1851. In 1852, the Bombay Association and the Madras Native Associations were set up. Many associations were set up in the 1870s and the 1880s. They included the Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, the India Association, the Madras Mahajan Sabha, and the Bombay Presidency Association. Since all these associations were active in a very limited sphere, most of the leaders felt a need for an all-India organization.